Let me show you how I've made my first ever junk journal. I've loved making this and I've made it in a really simple way that I can't wait to share with you. And the pages fold out completely flat. So the first thing we need to do is make the signatures, which are basically like just separate groups of paper folded into like a little notebook each. So I've made 4 signatures and I've made the papers all the same size. So this is what it would be like if you didn't separate your papers into signatures. It would be a weird shape here and very difficult to attach into a book. So we want this kind of shape here of this book I've been using, a nice square end here. So the papers will all lie nice and flat. So here's a few ideas of what you can use for your papers. So you could pull some pages out of a book, like a cookbook. You could use leaflets. This is a bit bright, but just to give you an example, you could use any kind of paper from anywhere really. So here's a gift bag. This is slightly thicker, but any card or paper would be brilliant for the pages for your junk journal. This is an envelope which has got a hard card bit, so you will need some harder card to make the covers of this journal, and then card or paper for the pages for your signatures. Here's just a piece of printer paper. I'll show you what I do to that in a minute. This is an old book that I don't use any longer, so this was a nice hard cover to use if I wanted, and a calendar there, which I didn't end up using. So these 12 by 12 sheets of printed paper, this is the last one I've pulled out my pad here. I will pull that piece of glue off and keep that for something. I think if you're organised, you can keep all the bits. So this was a pad I bought a while ago. It's 12 by 12 and all the pages I've pulled out now, but a big group of them I've not used. So I'm going to use them for my junk journal. I'm going to use that cover for my card for the to make the cover as well for the junk journal. So just checked it there. It's 12 by 12 inches. So I'm just folding the pages over like this, although it is too long, but now I have 4 sides. So that's all we're going to do to make the pages for the signatures, although we will need to cut them shorter. You don't have to, but I wanted mine 6 by 9. So on my floor here, I've got 4 piles of 5 of the papers. I just wanted to mix it up and make sure that I didn't have the same paper repeating. These pieces of card, I'm going to double thickness them and make the covers for the journal with them. This piece I'm not using, it's too, just doesn't fit in. And these are 4 pieces I'm going to use for covers, to put a cover around each of my signatures. It's not essential. It's more important if your signature has got you want like a decent thickness of paper on the outside, on these outside edges, because that's going to be sticking onto the next signature, and that's how we glue the signatures together. So I've got a piece of, sorry, I haven't got my camera on a stand here, so it's a bit wobbly. So this is what I mean by making a cover for the signature. It's just another piece of paper the same size, or a piece of card, and just a wrap around it like that. Now, like I say, it's not essential. It's just you need a sturdy piece on that edge. I used a few pieces of paper where I wasn't bothered about the other side of paper, so I knew that would be hidden anyway because it was going to be getting glued to the next piece, to the next book or signature. So I've just cut off this piece. So my 12 by 12 pad is now 9 by 6 once I fold it over. So I've just made sure that they're all the same size. This is probably what takes the longest amount of time, cutting your pages and your covers, or at least just your pages, down to size. So once that's done, you group them together like this. So each one of these has got 5 pieces of card. I just thought, because I'm using the staple gun technique, I'm not going to go any thicker than that, just to see if this will work. So this is a piece of paper that I dyed with just using a tea bag. So I've never done this before. It got quite messy, but it was nice actually just to have a good mess on. So I wasn't sure how long this was going to dry. I thought it was going to tear, but this is literally just printer paper. So you could use something as simple as printer paper and just use a tea bag or coffee, rub it all over. It dried super quick on this radiator. And then I went ahead and done it on some watercolour paper, my favourite paper at the minute. It's just lovely and thick and textured. So once they were dry, I actually tore the edges of the watercolour paper because it tears nice and thick, and you can see the layers of paper that there. So I rubbed my tea bag in because I knew those areas on the edge would go darker as they take in the extra stain of the tea bag. Went round the edges of the printer paper as well. I didn't tear this one, and left them to dry. So here's a few other elements I'm going to pop into my signatures. So my signatures are currently just 5 pieces of card folded in half, and then an extra one for the cover. So I thought I would add in an extra couple of little pieces. These are obviously smaller pieces, but I'm just going to make sure they're somewhere where the staples are. So instead of folding these in half or whatever, I've just folded off to one side just to add a little bit interest. And here's some of the strips that I cut off when I was cutting my pieces of card down to size. So I think I'm going to put 2 of these in each of my signatures. So my signatures will technically be 5, 6, 7, 8 pieces of paper thick. And this is the paper I've done with the tea bag. This is like an old treasure map. I love the feel of this. So I'm just going to pop them into my signatures. I'm not sure why they're called signatures. I'm sure there's a perfectly good reason why. So first of all, whatever you put in the middle page, obviously is going to open out as 1. So I think I'm going to put that there. And then just trying to put in things where I think it would look nice. Mix, and I've tucked some things behind like this. So I've just added these extra elements. You don't have to do this. You could just stick with 5 pieces of card, and it will work fine. But like I say, I've added the covers and then just popped in these extra elements here. So yeah, if you just use ordinary paper, maybe have a thicker piece of paper on the ends where the cover that covers each one. I've numbered them, but I'm not really bothered about keeping them in order. It was more so that I knew which way around was the top when I'm gluing these together, so the images aren't upside down when I glue these together. So I'm just checking everything is where I want it and sitting in the right place. So once I'm happy with everything, I've used my bone folder. These are brilliant, and just using them to just crease down these creases. Now I think this is really important when you're using a staple gun to hold your signatures together, because it just takes off the strain of the actual staple, and it just makes it nice and flat, so it's easier to get the staple gun through in the right place. So they're all in place. Now I think with most staple guns you can just open them out like this, and then you can just line it up. So I'm just making sure everything's straight and looking to see where my staple comes out of, putting it exactly on where this crease is here. Try to make sure all these pages are all exactly where the crease is in the same place, and then just lay it on there. Now this is an old wooden table I've got, so I'm not bothered about the staples going through. In fact, I knew that they'd gone in well when they went straight through and my book was stuck to the table. So then I'm just putting 3 staples in each page. So my pages are 9 inches tall. You could put more staples in, but I think the main thing is you make sure the staple goes right through the fold, right through the middle of the book. Yeah, I think, and it takes seconds to pull the staple back out if it's not quite straight, the staple. So although these staples look straight on this side, when I flip this book over, sometimes the staples aren't coming through the other side in exactly this middle along the spine there. So if it's not exactly in the middle, pull them out and just do another one for what it takes. And then you can just bend the staples over. I'll show you in a second. So I've just made sure that these are all in properly. So with this one here, this one was a little bit bent. I wasn't quite happy with it, so I just used my scissors. It probably took longer to get the staple off the scissors than it did to put another staple in. It's so easy to think, oh, it'll be okay, but I think this is just well worth making sure you get this spot on. I'm not sure what to do if you didn't have a wooden table like this underneath, like something you weren't bothered about staples going into. You could use something soft. I'm not sure, but regardless, this is definitely working for me, and the staples are coming through pretty much exactly where I want them there. And then I just used a pair of scissors. Yeah, you could use something soft to push this to have on the other side. I'm not sure. Just don't staple your table, please. And then I've just went ahead and stapled in stapled together the other signatures. If you squish the pages together, it's a good way on making sure the spines all drop in to the same place. And then just keep going until you're happy that all the staples are nicely right on the creases of each of the pages. I mean, worst case, if a staple was a little bit unsuccessful, because of the way we fixed this book together, it's very unlikely a page would come out. So this bit here, when I squeeze my pages together, in case you're curious, it's at exactly 1/2 inch. So you could add more signatures and have this much thicker, this book, but I've just gone with 4 for this project. I certainly wouldn't recommend having the signatures any thicker than this, like 5, what did I say, 6, 8 pieces of card thick if you're using staple guns. So I would just do groups of, say, 5 pages in each one, and maybe you could even do 6 or 7 signatures if you want a really thick junk journal. So what we're doing here is we're just gluing together the covers of each signature, and then we're going to just make sure we leave a 2 centimeter gap between. So this way I've drawn a line here is just about 2 centimeters from the spine. So I'm just gluing this cover with this PVA glue, and then making sure on the other cover I'm leaving that 2 centimeter space as well from the spine. It's quite important that that doesn't get glued, because that allows the journal to move, and it doesn't pull on the staples. You'll see at the end when I open the book out. So line up the covers like this. I think if you hold the book this way around, it's easier to be able to nip it together and see if it's nice and straight. And then once you're happy with that, I've just used a piece of printer paper here just to squidge it onto, just to take off any excess glue. And then I pulled out the printer paper because obviously I didn't want that gluing to it either. Just made sure they were nice and flat. I've absolutely loved making this junk journal. I've wanted to make one for so long. Why has it taken me 50 years to make a junk journal? I can't wait to start decorating these pages. So once you've glued the covers together and you have your first 2 glued together like this, just go ahead and glue on the other 2 signatures by just gluing the covers like we did there, but leaving that 2 centimeter gap of glue. So there is what it's going to look like when the 4 are glued together. So you can see that they're not glued right up to the spine. And then I just put something heavy on top whilst that dried. Putting a cup of tea on was not a good idea because I use this cup a lot. So I've just put on this little candle, which is really heavy, and just left that to dry for 20 minutes or so. And then once they were dry, I then concentrated on making the spine. So I had this little scrap of material with these nice flowers and greenery on. So I just checked that it was long enough to cover the height of the journal and enough to wrap round. So this is basically going to be getting glued on, and that is what's going to hold the journal together. So these pieces of printed paper I've saved because I want to use the bird one for the back of the journal, and I want to use these nice muted tones and this like botanical kind of nature page for the front. So I've considered this whilst I was deciding on the fabric. This actually took quite a while really just to decide what went best with what. So I'm going for this nice, like I say, nice muted colours here, and then this nice piece of thick, this is like upholstery weighted fabric, but as long as it's not stretchy fabric, you know, as long as it's not like lycra, I think you'd be okay with most fabrics for here. And then I've just put them together. Now remember these rabbit stockings I made one Christmas? Well, I had this one left over that I hadn't stuck down. So I think I'm going to try and incorporate this rabbit. A bunny's not just for Easter. I love rabbits and they're all year round to me. So I'm probably going to stick that on. Okay, getting back to attaching the spine, the fabric. So I've measured 3 centimeters up from the spine across the book, and I've just marked it there. So I can see where the 3 centimeter mark ends. Now, there's no rule for this. You could go over by 4 centimeters. I've just gone with what I thought would work. And then I've got a nice straight edge on my fabric there. Just checking that it's long enough to fit all the way around, and it is. Although I've only just got enough material. So I cut a few little strips of material Now, this isn't essential. I originally done this because I was worried that this blue and white pad would show through the material. But then I thought, actually, this is quite a good idea to just to put on here to create like a little bit of more of a padded area. And then once I realised, once I glued this up to the line that I drew, it created a little bit of a dint. So once I pulled the fabric over, so I pulled the fabric actually over that, slightly over the where the line would be. Just made sure that was dry properly. Pulled this slightly over, and then it means that then when I add the cover on, it can sit in this groove here. So then it's hiding the edge of the material. For example, once I make once I make the front, it will sit here within, and it hides the edge of the fabric there. So that was that. So I just made sure that little piece dried on there nicely first, and just checked exactly where I wanted this. So I've just pulled this just over that 3 centimeter mark, and I used some masking tape to hold it down because that won't tear when I take that back off. And then I've opened the book out like this, and then so I could see the edges here where I needed to mark to cut off these pieces where it's a little bit too long. So I always like to cut a little bit extra rather than a bit less or an exact amount, because I think it's just much nicer to have a little bit spare material. I've just used pinking scissors to trim these edges as well, so it stops it from fraying. Although this is a scrapbook, so I'm not bothered about the edges being a little bit frayed. So I know that that side's in the right place. I know I've got the marked edges for the pieces I need to cut off there. So on the back, I also put a strip here, measured in 3 centimeters, the same as this side. And then wrap the fabric round like this. And then I pulled the fabric round, so I just need to know now how much I need to cut off the back section. So I just pulled it round, put some masking tape on, and then just mark 3 centimeters going along here. Now I didn't wrap this material round as tight as possible. I wrapped it around quite firmly and squished the pages down, but I didn't go too tight. I wanted the book to have a little bit movement. So then I just popped the ruler in here. I could just feel where that material strip was sitting there, and it was right where I needed to draw the pen line. So I marked that, so then I know where to cut the material. Then I carefully just peeled this off, so I could see my pen line there, and then just turned it over and pulled off the other side like so. And then I knew where to cut, so I just cut the lines here on the sides with my pinking scissors. I love cutting material with these scissors, although I am obsessed about making sure the zigzag matches up. And then I cut this piece here, which was the extra piece on the back. So I just cut that down to size, cutting on the outside of the line. So I've got that little bit extra material. Then I pulled off the masking tape, and then I used this fabric glue, and I've just gone along here where the line is, gone over the material. But again, I haven't gone right up to the spine. I've left a couple of centimeters there again, like we did when we were gluing the pages together of the signatures. And then just carefully position the material. So the material is going up onto the journal, but it's going over the 3 centimeter line, just ever so slightly, just over it like so. And then just push that on when that was nice and straight. And then just made sure there's no glue in this bit here, which is about 2 centimeters roughly. And then just wrap this round, so you get a little bit of time just to make sure everything's in place here before the glue starts taking a hold. And then just pull this round this way, checking that the sides are exactly where I want them. Glued that on like so. I'm running out of glue. I need to go and get some more glue. Sorry about the background noise. Just pushed the book down a little bit, not super tight, just slightly pushed it down, because I don't want this piece to be baggy, this piece of material. So then just pushed it down like that, and it actually started gluing quite quickly. So I just checked, held the book up like this, checked that it was level, that was the same way amount round, squidged it into place, checked the spine was nice and flat there. I put a few pieces of tape on here just so I would know if it had moved or not. And then that was that. That is the spine made. So we only need to make the covers now of the book. So I just checked that was right. Now it hasn't quite dried. I probably shouldn't have been showing you this, but I'm just showing you here how with leaving the couple of centimeters gap in here, it's left. It means that you've got all this extra movement, so that the pages can open out nice and freely like this. And then when you push the book completely open like this, which I know you'll never need to do, but the fabric then just tucks itself into the middle. And just checking everything's nice and flat, and the book opens out nicely, and you can see there that it opens perfectly flat. So anyway, I've weighted this down just to make sure that the material dries nice and flat and doesn't move, with my super heavy candle and my pot of pens. And I left that for about 20 minutes, made a cup of tea, another one. And then to make the covers for my junk journal, I just cut up some card there. And then I just laid the page, one of the front page of the junk journal over the card, just to check that I had a nice amount of card to cover it. And I left about a couple of millimeters extra going round. So this is a couple of millimeters bigger than the pages of my signatures, which are 6x9. And then I just measured across to where I wanted it width-wise, bearing in mind I wanted it sticking out a little bit at one side as well. So when I cut this card, I used the two edges which were already straight because they were off the original card. And then just measured in this way around and just made sure it's the right width I want for my cover. And then this should sit nicely in with that fabric, where the fabric steps down after the 3 centimeter mark, and then a little bit extra so it overhangs. So I want the cover slightly bigger than the pages, just so it covers over the differences of where the pages end. So I just done this. So I made 4 of these pieces of card. Used this first one as a template, but first of all just made sure it was exactly right. I like to mark in 3 points and then draw a line, because it always differs a little bit, and if you mark in 3 points it straightens it out. So I just use my scissors that I've had forever to just cut this nice and neat. So that is going to be the cover like this. So I'm just checking that it fits in exactly where I want it to be. And then I just used it as a template and made a second one. So you could use cereal boxes, you could use any kind of card and just double it up if it's not particularly thick. Just double it up, and then you get a nice thick cover for your journal. And then just held these together, made sure they were nice and straight. They were squidging about a bit with it being like a glossy piece of paper. And then I covered them with some paper. So I've just laid the paper behind the template here. Just move my stuff out the way. I always end up with a really tiny space on this desk. So this is my front cover for my journal. And I've used this lovely paper that I want to wrap the card with. So I just used my PVA glue, although I think this glue actually glues everything together because I'm sure it says fabric glue on it as well. And I just put plenty of glue on there and then covered it over with my piece of paper. So I made the paper just about 1 centimetre bigger all the way around. And then I cut the corners, being careful not to cut right up to the actual very corner of the card, because then the corners might peep through. So it's a good idea to just don't cut right across to the corner. Just leave a good few millimetres. I just use my bone folder here to fold around these pieces of card. Paper would be easier to glue on, but the card, it was just the design I wanted. But as soon as the glue started seeping into the card, it was easier to fold. So I just folded this round. I'll show you probably easier when I'm doing the back cover, how I've done these corners. But it's pretty straightforward. So that is my front of my junk journal all made. So I just pulled off this masking tape, and then this is so exciting because I feel like it's finally coming together. So this has taken me probably a couple of hours so far, excluding drying times even. So not that long really when you think about how much pleasure you're going to get out of filling the pages with loveliness after this. I was actually thinking about maybe doing some separate videos on how I decorate the pages, because I understand not everybody wants to watch a video on how I'm decorating my junk journal pages. Let me know if it's something you're interested in. I could even do like a separate video on that, like a midweek video on junk journal pages, or even once a month. I'm not sure. Let me know if this is something that you're into. But for this video, I thought I would just show you how I've made my junk journal with just a staple gun. Well, as opposed to not thread. So I've just attached that on, just made sure it was exactly where I wanted the cover to be. And then I put on some heavy books and I put them right over where it needed to go there. So I'm just making the back here. So just doing the same. I did actually leave a little bit more card going around here because I felt like it was a bit neat. The amount I left for when I was doing the front there. So this is the card with the bird pictures on. So then again, I've just done the same thing. Put some glue around here. Cut the corners off, but not right up to the white card. And then just mush these round. So instead of trying to do all of the edges at once, I've just done a bit at a time here. And then just use me bone folder just to slightly fold over that little corner bit. Doesn't need much, just mushing over like that. And then the corner just folds in lovely and neat. And it looks like really professional. So I just give that a squidge down. And then the same with this, just use the bone folder just to push in that little bit of sticky out corner. And then just push that down. And that was lovely and neat. So you won't see much of this side when the book's together, but you will see some of the edge and the corners. So it's quite important to make sure you get the corners nice and neat. So that is my back, which I'm really happy with. I think that looks so nice. So put plenty glue on it. I didn't glue the very edge here where you can see the bit where you'd see it around the edge of the book. But I did glue it right up to the edge where it meets the material. So again, I just put some heavy books on here. Weighted these down and left this to dry. Super excited about seeing this because it's almost finished. Put some heavy things on. This little candle, which I will never burn. So that is it. I'm so excited. It's turned out really professional. And all this just using folded paper and a staple gun, a piece of material. So next for the actual cover, I decided where I wanted to put a little tag saying journal. And then I've shortened the rabbit down. I've squished it over to one side. So I think this looks okay. You don't have to say the whole bunny or the whole rabbit. I generally say bunny around Easter time, and then the rest of the year it's just rabbit. So I used some safety pins just to attach it on so I could see where it needed to go. In the meantime, while I was just deciding on where to position the rabbit, I just went ahead with my little stamp block here and I put the word journal on here. But with these little stamp blocks, the letters are never exactly where you want them to go. So I thought, actually, I'm not bothered about that. But if I've cut them out, and you can see that it's a little bit more skewy, like the line where it says journal, it's not like an exact line. So I thought this was actually just a cute little way on putting it together, just a little tag. So I just used a little bit of decorative green card there. And I went around the edges with a little bit pen. I must get some of that distress ink stuff that I see people using just to put around the edges. I must buy some. I will. So I thought I'd make this little tag stand out more and attach it to a couple of pieces of card just to make it nice and thick like this. And I've just gone with the green because I feel like the green would tie in the bits of green in the material. And next, just to make this stand out, it felt like it was a bit lost still. I needed to stand out a little bit more. So then I've just glued it to some of this vintage brown paper and then just used a gold pen just to highlight the edges. So once I decided where I was going to put my rabbit, obviously you can just decorate your cover any way you want. But I love rabbits, as you might know. So then I just marked it with a biro. Pulled it off so I could see exactly where I needed to cut. And then use me pink and shears, is that right? Or pink and scissors, can't remember, to cut this. I really didn't want to cut it. I've had this a good while now, but I can always draw another one. I was going to just wrap it around the inside of the book, but there was just too much material in the corner where it folded. So I just pulled that off and just cut this bit off too. with these pink and just trying to make sure I line up the zigzags. At least I know it's going to just sit on there nice and flat. I'm not bothered about the little bow hanging over. I think that looks quite cute. And then I just use some glue, just put it on a piece of paper here. And just use some glue, made sure it was glued quite well. I even glued the pieces that were hanging, going to be sticking out, because I knew that they could fray when I've been using the book a little while. So I just left the pieces sticking out, the bit bow and the bit ear, knowing that the glue would kind of stiffen it and hold it together like underneath. Obviously I didn't wrap them round, and then just glued that on. And then just to blend it, just to add a little bit colour to it, so just to add a little green touch to go with the theme, I just used one of my acrylic markers here, and then just added a bit green in and a little bit black detail here onto the bunny. I think that looks super cute. I give it a little bit of an eyebrow and some eyelashes. And then the last thing, the very final thing, was to stick on my little tag. So I stuck it slightly over the fabric here on the left. I just felt like it positioned there quite well. That is my first ever junk journal. Oh, I didn't mention, if you want to strengthen the inside of your first page, because the front cover, it can be quite heavy, and you could always just pop a little piece of fabric or material on the inside like this just to strengthen it. Absolutely love this junk journal. I'm so glad I've made this. Here's a few little tags. I'm just showing you here how important it is, again, to get your staples in the middle. I've got a few tags there that I made on a previous DIY. This tea bag, using this tea bag to stain this watercolour paper. I'll definitely be doing that again. Here's my junk journal opened right out like this. So you can see it's got plenty of room to breathe here. And so there's going to be less tension on those staples. So it literally will open out flat anyway around like this, without necessarily opening it with the covers on each side. So this has worked really well. But I wouldn't go any more than 5, 6, 8 pieces of card thick for your signatures. I would just do more signatures if you're going to use the staple gun. But this seemed to work out really, really well. So I haven't had to use any sewing. I just added a few more little touches. So thank you for watching this video. If you've made it this far, this is probably the longest video I've done ever. So yes, I can't wait to share this with you. I feel like it's a little bit different. It's possibly a new little avenue I'm going to go up. So here's a little actual pack of mini envelopes I got online. I'll leave a link to where I got that from, those little envelopes from. And here's just a little idea I was going to share with you. So I've cut one of the envelopes on an angle like this. And then I thought this then could then cover one of the corners, one of the pages. So this is just me experimenting with my first page, and maybe it's giving you a few little ideas of what you can do if you're new to junk journaling or scrapbooking, which I actually am. So I just popped this on the corner here and just got it over the corner nicely there. And then obviously I will glue that on. And then also one of the envelopes here, I've just tucked in, folded in the cover, the front part there, and then just folded the edges here, made it into like a little square pocket. And then my little tags then would just fit in, and maybe use this one that hasn't got the material on, and that can just slot in there. And then that can be a little tag that just slots in and out. And then I can just situate that on one of these pages, somewhere like that. Maybe shorten the little bit twine there. I think that's going to look super cute. And my little rabbit one here. This could just slot in here. Oh, I can't wait to start doing some pages. Like I say, let me know if you're interested in me doing more things like this, like decorating scrapbooks. I'm really interested to know if you are interested or not, because I will be decorating this journal, this junk journal, regardless. So I've really loved making this. 50 years, I finally made my own junk journal, and it was easier than I could ever have imagined. The hardest thing was cutting the pages all the size, which wasn't hard, it was just took time. And that's pretty much dry now, my rabbit on there. And I feel like it looks really professional without needing many skills or anything in particular to make it. Just some cards and paper, a staple gun, and a little bit of material and a little bit of imagination. Thank you so much for watching my video. I hope you've really enjoyed it. Please subscribe if you want to keep up with my weekly videos. Bye.